Welcome back to another episode of the MacRumors Show. I am Dan Hartley. Good afternoon. It's been a while. I mean, since we were, when we last saw each other, we haven't recorded in 2 weeks. Technically, I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while. How's life? How was your extended America trip?
It was good, although I do have iPad envy over the last couple of
Do you have
weeks.
iPad envy?
I do have
Why?
iPad envy
Why?
because I
Explain.
still have my M1 model, and the
Okay.
new hardware just looks so good, and I'm so tempted. Even though I said on this podcast that I would not buy one, and so far I've managed to stick to that, but I don't know how long I'm going to be able to.
What about all the reviews basically being like, yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, it's thin and it's beautiful, but it still does everything that my M1 and M2 iPads do. How does that make you feel? Does that make you feel a little better?
It does, but I'll be honest, the main draw for me of the new iPads is the keyboard.
Mm.
Um, I love the design of the new keyboard. The function keys, the aluminium top casing, the larger trackpad, the haptic feedback as well. To me, this is all just such a perfect selection of features. Not to mention the fact that it's lighter as well.
Yeah.
All of that, I have a feeling it would make my iPad experience better. And I know that I'm kind of falling into the marketing trap there because, of course, the software is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we're not that far out from WWDC now, where we will find out.
Right. I would say wait until WWDC to see if there's reasons to why you should upgrade and take advantage of the M4 chip. I've had it for how long has it been out for? Is it 2 weeks now? Almost two. Well, a week and a half. When did it come out? My days are all jumbled these days. Was it last week?
It's been out a week.
A week. Wow. I feel like it's been out for. I mean, we've been talking about it for so much. My life just one day could feel like 3 weeks, or 3 weeks could feel like a month, 2 months. I don't know. Anyways, I've had it since it came out. I've been using it, by the way, every day. I've been doing all of my non-editing and even some editing. I've been doing all the shorts on it. It's good. Like the hardware, you're right. The best part about it, honestly, is not even the iPad itself. It is the Magic Keyboard. So much better. The trackpad is just, I'm sad that it's taken this long for us to get this type of trackpad on the iPad. Because I feel like you said, for people like you who are like, this experience isn't that great, like it might have changed your mind a lot faster. Just getting that little bit of feedback, being able to just, I don't know, not have to physically press in. Just the feeling of it's better. I feel like it moves around the UI and just makes it feel more MacBook-like. And the keys are, I don't think the keys have changed physically, but they feel different to me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
They just feel better.
I suppose it's the vibrations through that casing are going to just feel different now, even though the keycaps are exactly the same.
Yeah, I'm guessing the materials around it and everything is just going to make the actual physical typing a little bit more of a MacBook-like experience, which is genuinely what I feel. I feel like there was some lost opportunity somewhere to add some more things. I'm a little disappointed it doesn't have an extra USB-C port, or at least a similar something comparable to what you're getting on the iPad, so that you're not like, if you're ending up using that, like just be able to transfer data somehow. I don't know how that would work, considering that it uses the magnets and the pins and everything to actually connect. But I don't know. Just nitpicking if I had to. I don't love that the material's still the same on the outside. So I'm going to be quite honest with you. I really don't like that material, but otherwise, I mean, it's really good. Apple Pencil Pro. Yeah, that's the one thing that I was like hyped on, and then I did the same. I don't use the pencil. If I took notes and if I was drawing, I think you'd feel like this is a pretty substantial upgrade. To me, it's just the same as it was before. And then when it comes to the screen, I thought I'd be more blown away by the screen. Like I was at first when I was comparing it side by side, but then just like on a regular basis, I don't really notice anything. It's when you start actually watching content that you're like, oh yeah, this is a really good display. But like normal day-to-day stuff, it's not that far off from your mini LED. So like the thought of me saying that the mini LED display to OLED was going to be like the most substantial part of the upgrade for me. After my first impressions, and I'll talk about this when I do my full review, but after my initial first impressions, I think I've kind of come back down to earth and thinking like, it's not that big of a deal compared to the mini LED. Now, when you go to the iPad Air display to the iPad Pro, then you're like, all right, this is a pretty big bump. But if you aren't looking at it or doing what I'm doing, where you're jumping back and forth, the iPad Air is also really good. That's got to be hard to not recommend to like everyone. I'm going to be quite honest with you. What do you think about the M2 iPad Air?
I think that ultimately it comes down to price.
Yeah.
It's also worth bearing in mind that the 10th generation iPad now costs only $350, which is a really quite a good deal. So if you just have basic requirements, I wouldn't even say you need the iPad Air. I think the entry-level iPad is really the iPad to buy now at that price point. And it's also a question of what configuration you're looking at, because if you generously bump up the storage on the iPad Air and you decide that you also want the Apple Pencil Pro and you want the Magic Keyboard as well, very quickly that is going to be getting into iPad Pro pricing territory. And I would be inclined to say, if you're that sort of user, maybe you should just buy the iPad Pro. So I don't think it's a bad device, and I think there will be many people where that sort of hits the sweet spot. But I just think it can get quite expensive quite quickly. I think that's really the theme of the iPad lineup as a whole now, other than the 10th generation model. I feel like it's getting really quite pricey. So that's why I think it's not quite as straightforward as the iPad Air being great hardware, because it definitely is. There's just other factors at play.
Yeah. I think if you're not doing like, I don't know, I've been able to fill up 256 gigs pretty easily on my iPhone, which is wild to me. But like, if you aren't using a lot of large files or downloading a ton of content from, content consumption apps, I don't know that you need to go much more than 256 on storage. The biggest bummer to me is that when I use the M2 iPad Air, especially the larger one, I always put it on a keyboard and it has to go back to the older keyboard. So I'm like, ew. I really wish they didn't do that, but I understand why they did, because I feel like that really cements it even more on like who would buy the iPad Pro at this point. Most people would just go with the Air, especially if we keep talking about how much of a better experience that new keyboard is. Most people are just going to be like, I'm just going to get the Air and get the new keyboard and be done with it. But yeah, it's weird. I'm lumping these two together just because obviously they came out at the same time. So it's hard for me to like figure out still which one I would recommend to people. I feel like I'm leaning Air, but like you said, you make some good points up there where it's like if you're going to start being a heavy user and really, bump up the specs and stuff, you might as well just go Pro. Do you think you do 11 or the 13-inch?
This is what I can't decide.
Yeah.
This is also part of the ongoing debate I've been having, where I've been saying, well, if I bought a new iPad, which would I go for? And at the moment, I'm leaning to the 13-inch model, because currently I have the 12.9 or 13-inch. I mean, they're the same thing now. We've just kind of changed the phrasing. They're actually the same screen size. But that's because I would like to see it as a laptop replacement. And it kind of bothers me when I use my iPad at the moment, when I use Stage Manager, that I just feel it's a little bit too cramped. So I know if I go down to an 11-inch model, that's going to be even worse. However, the 11-inch model is undoubtedly a better handheld tablet. So when I take my current iPad Pro and I use it, say, sitting on a sofa with no keyboard, it is a little bit too heavy and just a little bit too large. And in that case, the 11-inch model is better. So for me, and for anyone ultimately making this decision, it's really a question of, are you looking at this as a tablet or as a laptop replacement? And that should really determine what you do. And that's why I'm currently in this predicament.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. And I'm in the same predicament, not in terms of buying, but in terms of recommendations and how do I phrase these reviews. It's just like, it really does depend on what you're going to do. I know people think that's like a cop-out answer, but it's really not. I don't know that I would go 11-inch simply because I like to use the keyboard with these, and I don't love the smaller keyboard. I don't know if you've had the chance to use any of the smaller Magic keyboards in the past, but they just feel too crammed, especially for someone like you who's doing a lot of typing. I don't know that you would love that personally. So, I don't know.
But it's all a question of what you're doing, because at the moment, I barely use my iPad.
Yeah.
So if I had the keyboard on the 11-inch model and I ultimately just used it to make some notes and fire off some emails, I'm sure that smaller keyboard would be
Oh,
absolutely fine.
sure. But if you were going to take it seriously, like actually
Yes,
use it
and I'd
heavy,
like to take it seriously. I
right?
like
That's what
the
I'd
idea of
assumed.
taking it seriously. So
Yeah.
I guess it just depends on what we get at WWDC at this point. If we get significant improvements to multitasking, to the Files app, and just to the sort of the level to which the iPad Pro can actually replace the laptop, I'm particularly thinking with things like external display support, because although we have it now, it's really not. It's not great. Trying to open multiple instances of apps, moving them from the iPad to the external display. For example, when I use Apple Notes, I like to on the Mac just double click a note. And then I open that in its own little window. I do that all the time. So on my desktop, I've maybe got 5 notes open. Well, on the iPad, firstly, I can only have 4. And that's going to be everything. I can't open anything else at all.
Right.
And secondly, I can't double click. So I've got to drag up from the dock. I've got to hold down. I've got to wait for a plus to appear next to the existing windows. And then I've got to add it from there and then drag it up. So the gestures involved are just silly. So if all of this stuff improves, which I really, really hope it does, then okay, I'm going to give it another try. Probably.
It's like, the big debate, probably, maybe. The big debate here, though, is, Mac OS on an iPad. Should they do it? And I'm not at all going to be upset if Apple came out and was like, we're putting Mac OS on the iPad. I'd be like, all right, awesome, let's do it. But I'm starting to see more of the arguments for why maybe you don't need it. However, can they just at the very least have things behave consistently? Like, can the windows and the multitasking and that type of like external display, can't they just make that behave consistently in macOS? We don't need to change everything. Just make those things a little bit more. And it's not like window management and placement on the Mac is that great either. I mean, I know a lot of people that complain and download third-party apps so that things can snap to different portions of the. But like the point is, just make it behave so that it's at least better than what we currently have, and get it more consistently in line with how Mac OS behaves. And then I feel like people would be like, okay, cool. Then we don't need, everything else to be overhauled. I think it's fine if we kept it like this, but just give us the option. I don't know. I know they're trying to do that while still making it, similar to what iPad OS is kind of like. It's like core theme, but I don't know. I am looking forward to WWDC, just a few weeks away.
I think the issue with iPadOS and the iPad Pro in general is just how slowly it's moved. And it's very clear to me, at least, that it has been under-resourced inside Apple.
Oh, yeah.
And that's such a shame, because I'm sure that if the energy was there, if the same energy that was put into this hardware actually was put into the iPad software, I think it could be a serious competitor for a device like the MacBook Air. I think it could be hugely competitive for a lot of people that at the moment do just buy laptops, but the iPad just clearly is not a sufficient device to replace that. And I know they don't want to cannibalize Mac sales, but you don't need to, because most iPad owners also own a Mac, or at least vice versa. So I think they just need to invest the time into making into giving iPadOS the space to grow ultimately, and being a little bit more adventurous, because really we've had the iPad Pro now for 8 years nearly.
Yeah.
iPad Pro specifically, with Apple Pencil, with the keyboard accessories, with the larger display sizes, and we're still talking about how iPadOS is not a great experience now, 8 years later, which is it's a little bit
cool.
silly.
It'd be cool to go back in time, and I'm sure there's a way to do it. I just don't want to take the time to do that. I'm going to be quite honest, but like get iPadOS from 8 years ago on one of these devices and see, the transition between over the last 8 years.
Was it even iPadOS then, or was it just iOS?
It was just probably called iOS at the time. Yeah, I don't even remember when that transition happened, but I don't think it was 8 years ago. That's for sure. So you're right. It'd be cool to get that back on an iPad so that I can see like what changes have actually happened. Are we just being, too harsh and maybe there were a lot of significant changes, or has it really just been a few things here and there and then the rest has just kind of been the same? Go ahead.
I think that actually what I would note on that point that I think is pretty surprising, and this is just my opinion, but the best multitasking experience on the iPad is split view and slide over. So
Yeah.
I like, say, having Things 3 and the Notes app in split view, and then I will slide over, say, the Music app, and I will have that in a card full of stuff like maybe the Music app, the Podcast app, and maybe the News app as well. And then I can flick through those. I believe that was introduced with the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, or at least in that time frame.
What was it, 2018? So that's 6 years ago?
No, that was
or the original iPad. You were talking about the original iPad in 2016?
Yeah.
That was that long ago?
So I think, I mean, I'm not sure on the dates here, but what I will say is that the best multitasking experience and the best experience when it actually comes to doing work on the iPad is the same for me as it was 7 or 8 years ago. Stage Manager hasn't done it. All of these other gestures have not done it. They have not even come close.
The first gen was in 2015, the first iPad Pro, late 2015, so probably 2016. That's why it makes more sense for it. But like, split screen was introduced on that first iPad Pro. That's wild.
Yeah.
Man, my concept of time, again, things just, we had our first kid the next year, so everything was a blur for me. Yeah, okay. What about, real quick, what about the thinness of the iPad? Does that really pique your interest when you see all the things about the design and also the controversy around the ad? I know that was a couple weeks ago, but we didn't get a chance to talk about this. How do you feel about Apple pulling the ad that showcases not only how thin the iPad is, but also how you can get all of those things squished down? Is squished a word? Squished? Squashed down into a thin tablet. How do you feel about that ad getting pulled?
Okay, so firstly on the design, I actually really do like the thinner design. I have maintained for a long time, which was a bit of an unpopular view when I was saying it actually in the tech community, that I think the iPads are too thick.
Okay.
Because to be a device that is more portable than a Mac, there is no way that my 13-inch iPad Pro M1 with the Magic Keyboard should be heavier than a MacBook Air.
Sure.
And significantly less capable. And when I do want to just hold it with my hands and not have the keyboard and not rest it on desk, this thing feels too substantial. So I really like that new design.
But is that the thickness? Is that the thickness or is that the overall size? Why? Yeah, there it is. Thumbs up. Is that because of the thin/thickness of the iPad, or is that
it's both.
because
it's both because I
it's
sort of
the
feel
size?
like a tablet's meant to feel more like a piece of paper. My brain sort of wants it to be thin as well as light. I think both of them are sort of equally important. So these improvements are very appealing to me.
I agree with you on that. I think that notion to me applies to every tablet that is 11 inches or smaller. I think that 12-inch, I already know, the 13-inch now, I already know that I'm carrying around something large, so I don't mind if it weighs a little more, if it means that extra thickness is going to give me a little bit more battery or some kind of internal component that they can only fit in there that improves the quality of use and life. Like if the MagSafe charging thing was going to be a thing and they needed to make it thicker, I don't know. I just feel like I'm okay with that one being heavy because I already think it's heavy and it's bigger and I'm fine with it. But like 11-inch smaller, sure. Yeah.
It's a fine line because if they made the 13-inch iPad Pro thicker than the previous generation and facilitated a larger battery, at that point it would be about as heavy as a 14-inch MacBook Pro.
That would be pretty heavy.
If you wanted to hold that with one hand, like I can hold my 13-inch iPad Pro with one hand quite comfortably on my lap. If it got heavier,
do you do that a lot though?
Quite fatiguing. Sometimes, yeah, I'll take it off the keyboard and I'll use it in my lap, and I'll turn it around and use it in portrait orientation, and it works quite well. Like if I want to look through my my calendar or my task manager or whatever, I quite enjoy that. But if it got heavier and thicker, it wouldn't do that. And again, that's just tablets are not meant for this. Tablets are meant to be lighter.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the ad, I don't really agree with the backlash on the ad. I thought it was a
I
cool ad.
I don't either. Yeah. I I am a very big hydraulic press TikTok video fan. All of those video, I'm like, yeah, smash it all. This looks great. Um, I do understand the argument behind, because I'm not a, I was a musician, so like seeing instruments being smashed, if they're playable and could be given to other people, obviously I don't want them to do. But my guess is, and again, if Apple came out and said, no, these were brand new instruments and we bought them and we decided to smash them, I still wouldn't be as mad, but I would totally get the people whose side is like, why are you breaking all of these things when they could be donated? And I'm pretty sure they're either broken, on last leg, or props that were made for the commercial. Like, those monitors are not real. I can assure you that. They might be real casings of monitors that don't work anymore, but that was not a real thing. And I think from what people have said online, that was a lot of like, devices that were going to be recycled anyways because they were on the last leg and just they don't work anymore, and they were props and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I also don't understand that I agree with like the whole, that they're crushing creativity by using these, natural instruments and trying to say that technology will take over that whole thing. Like, you don't have to use the iPad to make music if you want to use your, non-digital instruments. No one's saying you have to do that. I think the point of the ad is saying, look at all the things you can do, and look at all the things that this iPad can be at any given moment, and look at how thin it is. We're putting it all into this tiny, thin little piece of glass, and that's cool. We should be excited that we have come this far in advancements that we can do all of that. We're not saying that people are going to be on stage now playing guitar on an iPad plugged into the PA. That's not going to happen. Maybe it might to some. That'd be an interesting band to go see, but I don't think we're there yet. So I don't know. I feel like people just need to just chill out a little bit on that, just a little bit. I understand both points, but I don't know that Apple needed to pull it either. I thought they were fine.
No, I think they actually shouldn't have. I thought it was a bizarre thing to actually issue an apology over. It's an ad, and it's an ad with a concept. It's like it's a metaphor that all of these different items ostensibly can sort of fit inside an iPad. That's what it's trying to say, which is not drastically different from saying, well, here's GarageBand, here's some Apple Arcade games, here are all of the different things you can do on an iPad. You know this already.
Yeah, so what's the point?
Why are you surprised that someone just sort of illustrating that?
I think it's the visual of seeing all of those, precious things that we've grown up, and seeing a piano getting smashed and a trumpet getting smashed. Like, that stuff does upset me in the sense of oh yeah, I do really enjoy those instruments, and I never want to live in a world where we don't have music. But that, I know that that's probably not going to happen in my lifetime. And so I also know that those aren't real, or those are not functional things.
But Apple is not sending around enforcement vans to take away your
right,
instruments.
Exactly.
It's an ad.
But some people just freak out about those things.
Artistic illustration of something.
Shout out
people
to
just need to calm
Samsung.
down.
Shout out to Samsung for getting on an ad, making fun of that ad quick. That's impressive. They turned around. Did you see that ad?
Yeah.
Yeah, they turned around something quick. I'm impressed. That's what you do, I guess, if you're a rival. You jump on their backlash. But I agree. I like I said, I could listen to both sides, but I ultimately don't understand why they pulled it. I feel like they've done worse, and they didn't publicly apologize or pulled anything. I feel like they could have just let this one go, and people would have forgotten about it. I don't know. Tim Cook still has it up on his Twitter, so if you want to go watch it, go watch it. I don't think he's removed the video. I just think they're not going to air it. They were going to air it as a commercial, but I thought it was really well done. And you know what sucks? We're talking about art, by the way. The people who made that commercial, that is art. That is something that they made, and now they don't get to see that. That could have been someone's first commercial they ever got to direct, and they were so proud of the way it turned out, and it looked great. And now they don't get to see that on TV after they probably spent months telling their family and friends, hey, something I made is going to be out there, and everyone gets to see it, and they don't get to see that.
And everyone in marketing is going to look bad for this, but I don't think they should.
No, I don't think so either.
I stand by. I think it's a good ad.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it for the first time. I think it's a pretty perfect illustration of what the iPad is capable of. If you have a kid and you want them to be able to explore some of these different things like music and art and all of these different things that the iPad is able to do, maybe you're not going to go out and buy them a trumpet on day one. Maybe you just want to have a discovery tool. The iPad is definitely that device, particularly for kids as well. Not everyone is going to be able to afford to fill their entire house with all of those goods and let a kid go wild with it all.
And I could personally attest to that. My son came home because they have school iPads and he has GarageBand on there. Totally shocked that they still leave all of these like extra apps that they don't need available to him. But he came home and he's like, look, I made this song. As someone who also was very interested in music at a young age and liked making music and making original stuff, I was very proud to see that he opened up the app on his own. I mean, he's 7 years old. And he opened up the app on his own and he found all the instruments and started putting some sort of a semblance of a song together. I could never even dream about having that happen when I was that age. And I would have loved to have that. And just to be able to like mess around with different instruments to see if I would even be remotely interested in it. And it's sparked his interest. He wants to play piano. And I'm like, well, here you go. There's a piano here. Learn on this if you think you might enjoy it. Not learn on it, but like mess around with it because it's not the same. You do need a physical piano to actually learn on. But yeah, I mean, like that, I agree 100%.
It's a way to spark these interests
Yes.
and explore stuff. And
I agree.
It clearly is an essential modern tool for that. So
curious to see the thoughts of those who listen to this and if we're just going to get killed for it. But
yeah, we probably will. But all I would say is, that there's a lot of things to worry about and in the world, and Apple doesn't do everything right. It's like we were saying,
not at all.
Even in the last episode, and I was saying just how much it bothers me with how wasteful AirPods are and their repairability, how terrible they are for the environment. I'm happy to call Apple out for that. I think that really is terrible. I think that if we're getting worried about what's going in landfill, I'm not worried about the piano in landfill. I'm worried about the 50 million AirPods units that are in landfill and seeping microplastics into the soil and being consumed by animals. That's what I'm worried about. I'm not worried about that single piano being destroyed. Yeah. So I'm not going too easy on Apple here. I'm just trying to get stuff in perspective.
But also, like, we don't know what the production was like either. It's an ad. It's very possible that a lot of those things weren't even real.
Yes.
So let's chill and know that, you watch countless things be destroyed on TV. Do we think a whole city is being destroyed when they make movie? Like, no one's up in arms about that. Maybe they are. I don't know. It was an entertainment thing. I get it. I respect both opinions. I'm not saying that those who are offended are wrong by any means. You're allowed to feel how you want to feel. I just don't know that I agree with them pulling it. That's all. I don't know. I'd listen to both arguments, be respectful. But with that said, a good transitional topic, because the whole point of that ad was to smush everything. I went with smush this time. Smush everything into a tiny, thin piece of glass. And apparently, Apple seems to really like this idea of going thin or go home. And we had a pretty large rumor this week that not the iPhone 16, but the iPhone 17 is now going to be the iPhone 17 Slim with a smaller display, rumored to launch next year. And then there were other potential, a new Pro model, a Slim Pro model above the Pro Max.
First of all, this device is rumored to be called the iPhone 17 Slim.
Yes.
But what we should say is that is just a made-up name. Obviously, this is so far away that there's no way it's necessarily going to be called that. My bet would be this is actually going to be called the iPhone 17 Ultra, because this is going to sit in the lineup above the Pro models. The Pro models are now going to become mid-tier models, and this device is going to replace the iPhone 17 Plus. So there will be no more Plus. There will be the iPhone 17 at the low end.
Yeah, 6 point. Well, are they? So here's the thing about the displays, by the way. Sorry to cut you off, but I want to clarify some of the things about the displays. Ross Young went on a tweet storm over the last, I can't tell you how many notifications we've had from that man about these display sizes and various things. What is happening? Because aren't we going from 6.3 or 6.1 to 6.3 and 6.7 to 6.9? And now it says that these would be between 6.1 and 6.7. Like, where are we at here?
Okay, so the iPhone 17
Yes.
will have, I think that's supposed to get I think that's still at 6.1 inches
Okay.
next year.
Right, because next year only the pros were going to
Um,
change. Or this year, I'm sorry,
y-
this year.
uh, yeah. I might be wrong about that, actually. It may be increasing to 6.3 next year. I don't remember. But regardless, that device is staying pretty much the same at the low end.
Okay.
Then the iPhone 17 Plus. There is no iPhone 17 Plus. That's being discontinued. The iPhone
Right.
16 Plus will be the last Plus model for now. Then we have the iPhone 17, which are this year with the 16 lineup
Mhm.
increasing from 6.1 to 6.3 and 6.7 to 6.9.
But
And
hold on,
then,
because that started
sorry,
as a pro. That started as a pro thing. Is it still going to be a pro thing for this year, or now are you thinking that that both like
no, that's still
non-pro
a
and
pro thing for this year. I'm
okay,
just
okay,
saying I can't remember
right.
if next year that was supposed to change,
And that's I'm not
because
gonna
these
kill
things
you on
trickle
that.
down the lineup.
No, and I won't kill you for that because how are you supposed to know 2 years from now? That all can change. But this year we seem pretty locked in with dummy units and everything being 6.1, 6.7 for those two non-pros, and then 6.3 and 6.9 for the pro.
Yeah, that's right. And then this new model, this iPhone 17 Slim, is expected to sit above all of those other models with this odd in between size, which is expected to be 6.5 inches.
That's so
So
weird.
that is in between the 6.3 and 6.7, 6.3 and 6.9 inches
Yeah.
next year. So it's an in between. But when you view that as an iPhone 17 Ultra, and it is going to have the best hardware. It's going to have a new front-facing camera. It will have a redesigned rear camera. It will have a smaller dynamic island, and obviously it will have this thinner design as well. It maybe makes sense that for now they only offer this in one display size. Of course, it is also expected to come at a higher price point. So if the iPhone Pro Max at the moment starts at $1,200, this device probably is going to start at maybe $1,003. So it's
Okay.
quite a big ask, and it's going to have to show off some really impressive hardware.
Listen, I know that bigger displays are not always synonymous with more expensive. I mean, we have the Plus to showcase that, but for many years, it was the largest Pro model got a lot of the Pro features, sometimes even more so than the smaller Pro model. It's really hard for me to wrap my brain around the Ultra sitting in between the two sizes, being the heavy like hitter basically. What else are we going to get with these? Do we even have that information?
Well, here's something that you might want to remember. Apple's done that before.
Okay, let's
Apple
see if
has
I can guess this.
introduced
Hold
a
on, let's see if I can
new
guess this.
high-end model
Let's see if I can guess this.
that is
What?
in between the display sizes of the two previously most high-end
Oh, okay.
models.
I think I know.
Go
iPhone
on.
10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which had 5.8,
Yep.
and that was in between 4.7 and 6.1.
This is the best phone too.
So yeah, so it looks like that's happening again. Apple is moving the lineup up market. So really, it's the best example that we have because the iPhone 10 came in at that $1,000 price point with a brand new design. It was radically different, and then of course the following year they introduced the 10s Max, and everything kind of shifted upward. But before then, we were looking at smaller display sizes and lower prices. It's just that realignment happening all over again. So the Pro is no longer going to be
So
the most fully featured iPhone that you can buy.
remember that concept that went around where it was like basically an iPhone 10 and an iPhone like 3GS kind of mixed together, like the way the back had like a silver aluminum with like a two-tone, and it's just like we were like, oh, this would be great if this was the iPhone 14 or 15, whatever it was rumored for. What can we do for a major redesign? Is that what we're doing? Are we going to go back to like a little more of a roundedness to it?
I don't know about design specifics in those terms, but it is clear that this is going to be quite significantly different. One of the changes we're expecting is it's going to have an aluminium frame. So we're going
Ew.
all the way back to that, and it goes in line with it being this sort
I
of
like the
slim device.
titanium. Yeah.
So if it's got to achieve a lighter weight, aluminium's the way to go for that. And the other difference is the camera will move
Yeah.
for the first time in the entire iPhone's history, and will move to the center top. So a little bit more like an Android device, actually.
Interesting.
But there must be some reasoning behind doing that. And it's because at that point, I believe we're expecting all 3 rear cameras to be 48 megapixel. So this year,
How are
with the
they gonna
iPhone
do-
16 lineup,
Like in a vertical formation, or like this way, horizontal?
no idea. But I mean,
weird.
to me personally, I think horizontal, like the Pixel,
Yeah. Do that.
is probably how it will end up looking. So that's a little bit strange.
That is
actually,
weird.
it's
That
going
is
in
weird.
direction.
Ooh,
I
I
mean,
would love to
it's-
hear what everybody thinks of that. That's interesting.
If this is where we're going to make the iPhone feel really fresh and different, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm
I
sick of
think
this
that-
design.
if it protrudes significantly from the device, which I'm expecting it will, because even though the device itself should be significantly thinner and significantly lighter, I'm guessing that the camera bump is not going to go away. And because they don't want the camera bump to look stupid, and the iPhone to just rock ridiculously on whatever surface it's on, if they do it as like a bar on the top of the device, then they avoid that. So that's one reason that I can think of as to why that would be the case. I mean, when we look at these new iPad Pros, Apple only talks about the thickness without the camera bump. So
Yeah.
why not next year the same?
Here's the thing. I don't know that I like this. I'm all for a major redesign. I don't know that I like making the phones thinner. This is very much like, okay, you made the iPads thinner. That's fine. Like, I'm not using my iPad all day. I'm not carrying it around with me. I'm not expecting and it's still got really good battery life because of how big the device actually is. But these aren't 14-inch, 13-inch displays. They're small. If you make this thinner, they're gonna have to take some battery out, right? It's gonna, unless they have some crazy new way to load this thing up with batteries, and then they're expecting their chips to help with performance and efficiencies. I mean, these batteries are already not the best. I don't know how yours is doing, but mine's like, oh hey, is it summer? Is it summer? Is the iPhone coming out in a couple months? Because we're going downhill on battery life. It's already starting to go. It was great for a little while, and then it's just. So I have to play devil's advocate here and say, yes, I like a redesign. Sure, thin sounds cool if they can get it to be as thin as the iPad. That sounds cool, I guess. But I'm not asking for that. I would also love it if they made it thicker so that we could have incredible battery life. And then I can use my phone all day for multiple days without having to worry about charging.
But maybe Apple would say, well, then this iPhone is not for you. Then you need to buy the iPhone 17 Pro Max, which will still
Don't
be
you tell
just
me
as
what's
thick.
not
It
for
will have
me, Apple.
even-
Don't you tell me what's
it will
not
have-
for me.
even better battery life, because by then we'll be on the A19 chip, which will be more efficient. and
A19. That's insane.
whatever. So I think that may be the proposition.
No,
I think the battery life.
I don't buy
good,
it.
because
You
by
think it'll
then
be
we should
good?
get stacked batteries.
Sure.
Yeah, because the actual battery technology should be different. There were rumors that might have even happened with the iPhone 15 lineup. So by
Listen,
the time we get to the iPhone 17, surely we're going to have stacked batteries. So stacked
Surely.
batteries plus a 2 nanometer A19 chip should be enough to get us
okay.
to like a 30-hour battery life.
I can be convinced if you make this thing even thinner, which I don't know how. Look at how thin it already is. Where are the buttons going to go? Where are we going to put the buttons? We're just going to make the buttons even
the buttons
smaller.
can get thinner as well.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like these are already kind of hard to find, and I don't know, man. The thinner you get, I feel like you get more problems going on here. Everybody likes a thick boy every once in a while, Make it a little chunky, thick guy here. But the only reason why I'm okay with it is because maybe they're like, the stacked technology isn't ready yet. We don't want to do it. It's too expensive. Whatever the case may be, make it thicker. Hide the bump. Would you be all for it if they made it thicker and they gave it incredible battery life? They redesigned it to make it look the way you want it. Yeah, it's a little thicker, might be a little bit heavier, but it's completely flush. How would you feel about a completely flush back?
I mean, I would like that.
Yeah.
But it's a question of at what cost, because to me, I find the iPhones at the moment a little bit too thick and a little bit too heavy. I really like the switch to titanium because I appreciated the reduction in weight, and now I'd say they're maybe just borderline a little bit too much.
Are you?
But I
You're using the
remember the
smaller
days
one though,
of
right?
yeah, and even then,
And you still think
I'm
that?
a big fan of the iPhone 11 Pro. Was the last device that I felt was truly pocketable, was truly pleasant to use with one hand. So the thicker you go, the more uncomfortable that's going to be, the more pressure you're going to put on my little pinky finger when I'm resting that device up. So
Yeah.
if you give me a device that is significantly thinner, significantly lighter, and will deliver a better battery life than I currently have on my device, which is not a Pro Max, I'm very happy with that. So again,
People,
maybe it's just not meant for you.
I just don't like you telling me that. I don't know why. It really bothers me. Cuz like I live in this superficial world right now where I just like I get the best phone that I can get, and you're telling me the best phone is not for me. Makes me feel sad. I don't like that.
Oh, well, we've got what, 18 months more of me being able to say this to you.
Yeah, I mean, I say that because I live in this world where I have to get the best phone and the entry level because we review them. But then ultimately, I can pick which one at the end of my review process, and I always pick the better one because in my mind, that's what I've been, you know, sheepishly into thinking. Like I gotta go with the best. And now you're saying the Ultra is not for you. You're not good enough for the Ultra, Dan. You need to get the small. Maybe I'm
I'm not
gonna go
saying you're not
iPhone
good enough
SE
for it.
4.
I'm just saying that the what they're doing here, I think, is they're trying to create an iPhone with a different ethos.
Yeah.
So the iPhone 17 Pro Max will be that device with a thicker design with titanium. It will be more. It will be more ruggedized, so it will be more durable, and it will deliver that battery life. But maybe the iPhone 17 Ultra or iPhone 17 Slim or whatever it will be called is meant to be for those who want the slimmest, lightest, most portable, most pocketable iPhone that's great to use with one hand and still delivers pretty good battery life. I mean,
I'm sorry.
it is
The
also
iPhone
going to have
10.
better camera hardware.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
it's going to have all of these other things as well. So, I mean, we'll get that. I'll be honest with you. I can actually see, and this is completely unsubstantiated speculation, but if we assume this is this another version, if you like, of what the iPhone 10 did for the
I was
iPhone
just gonna
lineup,
say, if they could do
then
that,
maybe with the iPhone 18 lineup and the iPhone 18 Ultra, maybe we will get the iPhone 18 Ultra and iPhone 18 Ultra Max.
no,
And
stop,
then you're going to
stop,
get a
stop,
bigger.
stop. Nope. We don't need more names. You know what? Add whatever you want to the phone itself. Do not add another word to these names. I don't. I can't take it. I don't want any more of this. No, no, no. I'm fully convinced that if you could just make the iPhone 10 in an updated version, like update all the hardware, obviously the display, decrease the bezels a little bit, you can get more display jammed in there, but like almost similar form factor, put the cameras on there, I'd be fine with that. What if we just went back to the iPhone 10?
I'd be pretty happy with that. I would. I think the stainless steel is unnecessary because it's heavy. It looked great, but if they did
No,
that with
that's
the titanium or the
yeah, sure.
aluminium,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd be even happier with that.
I'm just overall
I,
design and like hand. That was the truly pocketable. That was the best phone in my opinion. Of just
but maybe this is what they're imagining. Maybe they are
okay,
looking at that and they are
all
trying
right.
to deliver that again.
I could be on board
In
with
which
that.
case, maybe you will be okay with it.
And I will be okay with it because it's the one that has all the best features, and so that's just what I'm gonna take. It's
And it
sad
will
that I
look
have to say
super
that,
different.
and it will look different, and I'll want that, and it's sad. I should just get what's best for me, and it might not be, but I'm going to make it best for me. That's what I do. I do that with the Pro Max. I don't like this size, but I make it work. So,
Just for that 5x camera?
and the battery. Like I complain
Yeah.
about my battery
Okay.
now, but it's got to be way worse for you than it is for me.
Oh, yeah. Mine does
Yeah.
not last a day.
Yeah. I don't like to be inconvenienced by having to charge. And so I try to avoid it as much as possible. Sometimes I'm hanging by a thread at night and it's like 2%. And then if my phone dies and it's like nighttime, that's my sign to just go to bed, which maybe we need it to die a little sooner so that I can just get off my phone, unplug a little,
Yeah.
But it's also like the key to my car. And so sometimes I don't want it to die and all of that. Okay, last thing before we end. Have you seen the Sonos Ace, Sonos
I
headphones.
have.
What are your thoughts? Have you seen my video on it? And if your answer is no, then you just move on.
Of course, my answer is yes. Of course, my
Oh,
answer
okay,
is
good.
yes.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay.
I'm really intrigued by them because I hate the AirPods Max.
Right. I thought about you the
And
whole time I was trying these.
yeah, and I feel like maybe this is just AirPods Max, but without those problems.
Yep.
The only issue is they don't fold, but I can get over that.
But okay, so Sonos explained to me why they didn't want to do a folding, and they said, or a folding pair, and they said that universally in their research, it seems to be that's the first thing that ends up becoming defective is that you're constantly folding them. And eventually, those hinges and those mechanisms that do help it fold are the first things to wear out. And I'm not sure how often people update headphones, but I'm guessing in, let's just say 2 to 4 years, it's probably going to fail pretty quickly. And then it's like, ah, shit, then I got to get new headphones. And, maybe you're upset at that brand for the headphones folding and failing quickly. And then that turns you off to them. And so I understand that if they can limit the amount of like mechanisms and things, mechanical stuff that has to happen, you want to try to do that. But I also understand, people who want it to make it small. They also said that if they were to get it to fold, that it wouldn't really change the portability as much. I don't remember exactly how they explained it, but they said that the case that they need to make for it and everything, it would decrease the size, sure, but it still needs to be thick enough to get it. And so they just didn't see the trade-offs where if they make it fold inwards like this and have it lay flat, they can make the case, sure, it has to take up the size of the headphones, but they were able to make it, and I was very impressed when they handed me the case, how thin it was. So it kind of, it's kind of like, what are we looking at here? What's more important to you? So I was okay with it. I love that there's a power button. How great is that? I can turn them off. The battery life is 30 hours, which I couldn't remember off the top of my head where everybody else fell into, except for Apple. I thought Apple's 20 hours with ANC and what is it, the spatial stuff turned on.
Yeah.
So this is 30 hours with that. And I said, what if you turn it off? And they're like, oh, they didn't even know. They're just like, oh, I'm sure it's a long time. So that's impressive. That's pretty high up there. The ear cups are very much the same. A lot of people were upset that it was vegan leather, or just leather in general, but vegan leather. They don't like the material choice. How do you feel about that?
I'm okay with it. I've had a better experience with leather ear cups than with the AirPods Max.
Okay, I agree.
So,
they do get a little sweaty.
I don't feel particularly strongly about it.
Yeah, well, I understand that some leather cups in the past have gotten sweaty, and I think that's where people were like, it gets kind of gross. Now, all my experience is based on like my first impressions. This is not, in fact, I literally I'm looking at the box. The box just arrived this morning, so I haven't even tried them again yet. It's still sitting right there, just staring at me. I'm allowed to tell you that I have them, but my full thoughts will be June something in a few weeks when they come out. They come out June 5th. But I do like that they borrowed Apple's approach to the ear cups and that they're magnetic and just easily removable. And if you wanted to buy more, you can. I don't remember the price offhand. I don't even know if they gave them to me. But I'm guessing they're probably Apple's ear cups are like in that $30 price point, right? If you want to buy new ones. Is it 30 or 60?
I don't remember.
I don't either. It's been a while. But if you wanted to, you could, and you could change the colors if you wanted to. I thought sound quality was excellent, and I thought noise cancellation was excellent, just from the brief times that I had. They were piping in a ton of noise, and I turned those things on. I couldn't hear a single word. Even putting the headphones on and putting music on and turning off noise cancellation, I still couldn't hear anything. And then you turn that on, it was just like isolated completely. How do you feel now? This is where I'm going to have a hard time with the recommendation. So AirPods Max they retail for $549. Let's just go with the retail prices, just for the sake of argument. $549. Sonos Ace $449. That's a good thing, but you need a specific sound bar in order to take advantage of the whole audio with your TV pairing. Now, it's not just the one soundbar. Right now at launch, it is the Arc, which is their like $800 soundbar, but they do have like a one at 200 and one at like 350, and those will become available via a software update soon after launch. But as of right now, it's just with the Arc. So let's just say, for the sake of this, it's going to be available with all Sonos soundbars at any of those price points. With Apple TV, you can do the same thing, but you need to buy an Apple TV. Obviously, the Apple TV is a lot cheaper than a Sonos soundbar, but not by much. And with the price difference, you're kind of looking at the same thing. Like, what do you think's more important to you if you were to use them for watching TV? Having the soundbar and having to spend, like, let's just say the $800 for that, compared to like $129 for an Apple TV? Or do you think it's like, oh, well, my TV has crap audio anyways, and I was going to get a soundbar, so how do you feel? How do you feel about this? Just curious.
I think the Sonos soundbars are great. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that doesn't particularly bother me. And the fact that they are bringing it to even to the cheaper models as well is pretty acceptable. I mean, they can't work the magic that Apple can by having such control over the ecosystem. And really, that's all the AirPods Max, in my opinion, have going for them.
Yeah.
Other than audio quality, which is great, but no one's going to tell me the AirPods Max are better than its competitors in terms of audio quality. They're really good, but they don't sound better than their competitors. They're completely in line with their competitors for audio quality. So what the actual advantage of the AirPods Max is just that ecosystem advantage and easy device switching, and being able to pair them up with the Apple TV with one click. But that's really it, in my opinion. And I know a lot of people disagree with me about this, but I'm afraid this is the one thing I will never be persuaded of, is that the AirPods Max are a good product.
Yeah, so I don't know that you can pair. I'm sure you can. Some headphones allow for multi-device pairing, so that it is kind of an easier switch per se. I don't know offhand what the Sonos has. If I wanted to go from my iPhone to my iPad, do I need to repair? That is going to be a little annoying for how often I travel and do like switch between those two devices. But if you're like someone who just uses it with their phone and their TV, you'll be happy to find out that you don't need the ecosystem if you already have the Sonos ecosystem around, because it's just one tap, then one button press, and it's going to immediately pair with whatever soundbar is in your immediate vicinity. And it's smart enough to detect if there's one upstairs and one downstairs. If you're within a few feet of the other one, it's going to do that one. So you don't have to worry about that. I know a lot of people were. Yeah, I mean, it's just, they sound just as good as AirPods, and they can be tailored via EQ in the app. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to beat that. And then, by the way, they're lighter because they're made of plastic, which, yes, it's not as good as the aluminum. They're not as comfy, or they're not as good looking, but they're very much more comfortable than the AirPods Max. And I know you don't like the clamping that it does, and you don't get that at all. So, all right. Yeah, I'll have more to talk about that. Do you have anything else to say on the Sonos Ace, or you just intrigued?
I probably will sell my AirPods Max and buy these.
I was going to ask you, are you going to buy these? That's good. That's huge. Do you hear that, Sonos? You've converted. I know it wasn't hard because you didn't like the AirPods Max, but you still stuck with it because of the ecosystem. So I do the same thing. All right. Well, would love to hear from you guys on everything that we just talked about. Especially, the iPad stuff, the ad. Those are pretty controversial things. So, but yeah, we'll catch everybody in the next episode.